Welcome to this explainer. Okay, we are diving straight into Chapter 8 today, the flying botnets of the West. If you've been following along with our heroes so far, you know they are finally leaving the cozy safety of the Emerald City. They're stepping right out into the wild, totally untamed territory of a compromised system. And I have to say, it is a beautifully rendered story. It perfectly blends that sense of pure, classic wonder with the very real, very modern anxieties of our digital lives. So let's just get right into it and see what happens. We're instantly dropped right into the sensory experience of crawling through what the author calls the degraded network. And they don't just tell us the journey is hard, they paint this incredibly vivid cyberpunk landscape for us. Imagine walking not through some lush fantasy garden, but through a failing digital infrastructure. The iconic yellow brick road? Yeah, it's now the yellow brick code, and it's literally deteriorating, cracked and pixelated right beneath their feet. And instead of a normal mist, our heroes are trudging through this heavy gray fog of buffer bloat. You know that exact feeling when your connection is lagging, everything is just crawling, and the whole vibe feels sluggish and broken? That's what they're walking through. It sets this deep tone of vulnerability right from the jump. And in this degraded environment, the tension suddenly spikes. The Tin Man, who's really acting as the group's logical protector here, just halts. His sensors are picking up something deeply troubling, a massive influx of unsolicited traffic. He immediately readies his silver axe, realizing that somewhere out there in the thick gray fog of this lagging network, someone or something is actively monitoring their IP addresses. It's the digital equivalent of hearing a twig snap in a dark, creepy forest. Dorothy is clutching Toto, whispering, wondering if it's the witch. But the scarecrow points up to the sky. He realizes it's something entirely different, and honestly, maybe even worse. What the Scarecrow sees up there is an incoming distributed denial of service attack, a DDoS. But remember, in this world of wonder and danger, a DDoS attack actually takes a physical form. High above the gray plains, a swarm of dark, winged shapes suddenly appears. These are the flying botnets. Picture this visual for a second. They are clunky, mechanical primates, but instead of heads, they have flashing network routers. And instead of feathered wings, they're kept aloft by these rapidly spinning cooling fans. And the sound they make? They don't howl like animals. They screech in this terrifying, chaotic language of pure 404 errors. It is a total sensory nightmare of broken links and mechanical fury. Now the action just accelerates into overdrive. The lead botnet shrieks out its command, kicking off a high-energy attack that feels right out of a classic children's adventure book, but weaponized with modern cyber malice. Target identified, deploy the malware vines. The whole swarm just descends on our heroes like a massive cloud of mechanical locusts. But what makes this sequence so fascinating to me is how they attack. They aren't using physical claws or, swords. Their primary weapon is the exact same thing that plagues our modern world: information overload, which leads to this incredible split in how our heroes actually react to the sheer volume of the attack. Look at how this attack forces two completely opposing responses at the exact same moment. On one side, you have raw, unfiltered emotional panic caused by the data swarm that's targeting the lion. But then on the other side, you have this cold, impenetrable logic acting as a literal firewall, projecting outward from the Tin Man. It perfectly frames this conflict. It's not just a physical fight, it's a battle of internal systems trying to process corrupted data. The sensory storytelling is just top-notch here. The cowardly lion simply cannot process the information overload that's raining down on him. The botnets specifically target him, and they start pelting him with terrifying digital debris, stuff like urgent subscription renewals and fake security alerts. I mean, we all know the momentary panic those pop-ups cause us on a Tuesday afternoon, right? But for the lion, it induces a complete and total system failure. He physically curls into a defensive ball, his internal systems crash, red error lights start flashing wildly all over him. He lets out this roar. I can't process the fear. And honestly, it is such a deeply relatable moment. He is completely paralyzed by the sheer volume of malicious noise. But while the lion is overwhelmed and shutting down, the Tin Man totally steps up. His command just echoes over the screeching noise of the deep web. He stands over the fallen lion, and suddenly this broad silver-violet light expands from him. This is his shield of non-contingent value. Such a gorgeous concept, right? The malware vines strike the shield and instantly they just dissolve into harmless zeros and ones. Why? Because, as the Tin Man explains, these chaotic attacks absolutely cannot penetrate a boundary that is built purely on logic. The botnets rely entirely on fear and confusion to work, which the Tin Man's cold logic just completely rejects. But Asheila's only going to delay the inevitable. They need a counterattack right now, which is why he urgently calls out, "Dorothy, use the grace flow." So what does Dorothy do? She doesn't pull out a physical weapon. She counters with her own human agency. In this crazy world of mechanical threats and logical firewalls, Dorothy represents the human element. She is the user. She grounds herself, digging in her silver slippers, and reaches right into her basket. From the recovery pools, she draws out something small and glowing. It's a packet of peace. She winds up and throws it high into the chaotic, screeching air of the attack, and it detonates. But it doesn't explode with fire and shrapnel. It bursts like a flashbang made of pure, uncompressed truth. It's a phenomenal visual, just human clarity cutting straight through digital manipulation. And then, suddenly, the chaotic noise of those flying mechanical primates is completely blinded by the profound silence of what the text calls the God pause. The author describes this moment so beautifully. Think about it. The flying botnets are entirely accustomed to the frantic, relentless noise of the deep web. That is their natural habitat. They thrive in the chaos. So when Dorothy's packet of peace detonates, the weapon isn't a louder noise. It's absolute, undeniable silence. This God pause instantly neutralizes the frenzy. It's this overwhelming moment of clarity that the malicious code simply cannot comprehend or process. It short-circuits them. That burst of pure truth stalls the attack entirely. The physical reaction of the botnets to this absolute silence is immediate, catastrophic failure. Because they can't process the God pause, their spinning, cooling fans just stall out. Their flashing router heads are forced to do a hard reboot. The entire terrifying swarm drops straight out of the sky, tumbling to the ground into this pathetic heap of tangled wires. It's a complete, massive victory of clarity over chaos. And the Scarecrow, ever the analytical one of the bunch, helps the Lion to his feet, looks at the wreckage, and casually notes, well, that was highly inefficient for them. But, of course, the wonder and the relief are immediately shattered. A massive, dark figure rises, shifting the whole cinematic tone of the scene to absolute menace. Their victory over the botnets turns out to be incredibly short-lived. Just as our heroes are finally catching their breath, the real architect of this degraded network reveals herself. From the shadows of the Gray Plains, a towering figure begins to materialize, and she's constructed entirely out of thick, black, oily smoke. The air immediately grows heavier. You could feel it. The true boss of this domain has arrived. It's the Wicked Witch of the West. Her eyes are burning with the toxic green light of a data mine furnace. And her voice hisses exactly like a dial-up modem. The descriptive details here are just spectacular, aren't they? She isn't just some generic evil wizard. She is the literal embodiment of archaic, malicious technology. Her eyes glow with the energy of a furnace burning raw data. And when she speaks, her voice is that screeching, scratching, totally unforgettable hiss of a 90s dial-up modem trying to connect. She casually acknowledges their minor victory over her minions, but then confidently asserts her ultimate superiority. They cannot break her encryption. And with that, she orders her guards to capture the user and the scrap metal. Then, she reveals her terrifying motive. She operates a legacy system that is slowly failing, and she needs to harvest Dorothy and her friends for raw parts to keep her outdated, corrupted empire running. With a quick flick of her digital power, a massive digital snare just falls out of the sky. There is absolutely no time to deploy another shield of logic. There's no time to dig into the basket and throw another packet of peace. The trap is sprung instantly. The witch's snare successfully locks them all into what she calls a root-level quarantine. They are completely trapped in the deepest, most inaccessible part of her failing system, destined to be dismantled for parts. It is a massive cliffhanger. It perfectly blends classic narrative tension with really high-stakes cyber drama. And it leaves us with this incredible thought. If our heroes are trapped so thoroughly, and we too face a relentless barrage of information overload and digital snares every single day, how do we learn to deploy our own packet of peace before we're swallowed by the noise? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll catch you next time.